1 year ago, I released a video I hold very close to my heart about a show I hold very close to my heart, Ketradora, A Study of Love. You can go watch my Whiplash video if you want to hear why that video holds significance to me, but basically, I thought, why not make another She-Ra video on its anniversary? Could be fun to talk about one of my favorite shows not in an analysis video. Originally, I was going to make some sort of top 10 list for my favorite episodes, but as I was going through the episodes to narrow down which ones were my favorites, I realized that, there's not that many of these episodes. Why not throw in the others? So now I have formed a ranking of every She-Ra episode. Some notes before we get started, only the She-Ra episodes listed on Netflix count for this video. The Swiftwind and Princess Alliance shorts will not be included even though they are still worth watching.
A stick?
Mom, did you hear that? I can get my own stick!
The Sword and Destiny are two-parters, but since they are separate episodes, they will have separate spots on the list. Although I do have basically the same opinion on Heart Part 1 and Heart Part 2, so I just decided to put them together into one. Hope that's okay. And finally, since She-Ra is a very story-driven show, all these episodes tie together in some way. I'll try my best to only talk about the specific episode in a specific spot, but sometimes it is necessary to bring up context from other episodes. Alright, let's get started. Number 51, Flowers for She-Ra. This one is very mediocre and boring. It should show how much I like the show if I'm only calling the worst episode very mediocre and boring. The action is not exciting at all, and the teamwork message is really forced. This is pretty much the only episode that feels like it's aimed only towards kids, which does make sense considering it's only the fourth one. Number 50, The Frozen Forest. I mentioned in my first She-Ra video that I do not like Frosta, and this episode is emblematic of why. All she does is just annoy Glimmer, and it gets old. The plot of the episode is boring, and once again, the action is as well. I like how the Horde members watch the Princess battle as if it's some sort of sports game though. Number 49, Beast Island. This one was a huge missed opportunity. The idea of bringing King Micah back is great, but the episode feels eventless. Next to nothing happens in Glimmer's plotline, and the whole island signal thing is tedious to sit through. However, the scene where Adora makes the signal disappear was really powerful, plus some of the creature designs are cute. Number 48, Pulse. Season 4 got a lot better for me on rewatch, and I definitely like Glimmer a lot more. I just think this episode was kind of stale. It's way too action heavy, and none of it is really great outside of the fight between Glimmer and Ketra, as well as this exchange.
Didn't anyone ever teach you to put away your toys? Otherwise, someone might come and break them.
You think I don't have more?
Plus points for Spinnerella and Natasa. Number 47 is a very, very unpopular opinion, but the Sword Part 2 is a bit boring. It works well as an introduction to these characters, and the conversation between Ketra and Adora is so powerful, and obviously has a lot of significance to both of their characters. It's just that the episode doesn't have much of a plot, and I really think it should have been used for more world building. It's alright, it just sort of drags after a while. Number 46, In the Shadows of Mystacor. This one is a decent episode, if a bit slow and tedious towards the middle. It also has that really stupid, "did you do this?" trope. Mystacor is a cool setting though, and Catch a Spell is kind of fun, but I think the later episodes handle the conflict between Shadow Weaver and Adora way better. Number 45, The Coronation. Like I said, I like Glimmer a lot more on this viewing, and the last 7 minutes of this episode are amazing. The scene with the message from Angela is so powerful and sweet, and so are some of the interactions between the characters. What holds this one back, however, is that I think it goes a bit too far with the everything is going wrong aspect. What is this? And the humor is not particularly great. Still, definitely like this one more on rewatch. Number 44, Signals. The Horde stuff in this episode is honestly great. I love Entrapta and her interactions with pretty much everyone. Scorpio is funny, and this is the episode where Ketra starts becoming really compelling. I just didn't like the stuff where Adora, Bo, Glimmer, and Swiftwind go to this pretty boring town and do something, I think. Feels like a leftover from a mediocre Halloween special. The static hair animation is great though. Number 43, Light Spinner. I feel like this one was another missed opportunity. It's not bad, but they could have done a lot more with the sorcery stuff and the idea that Glimmer's dad was Shadow Weaver's old student. The interactions between Ketra and Shadow Weaver are really compelling though and carry most of the episode. Number 42, Hunt Tara. I'm actually surprised this episode is this low because I remember loving it a lot more. The stuff with Hordak and Entrapta is still amazing and really wholesome. It left me smiling. However, I didn't really like the stuff with Huntara and the Best Friend Squad. Once you've already seen the episode episode and you know the twist is coming, it starts to become boring. Maybe this issue would have been smaller if the twist itself wasn't completely pointless. Number 41, Raz. After the extremely important series premiere, this episode just kind of felt like it was trying the same themes as the Sword Part 2, and later in the Shadows of Mistcourt. Raz is alright, but they went a little too overboard with their interaction and their interactions with Adora. I love the Ketcha stuff though, and as I went over in my other video, this episode is really important to her character and the entire series. Number 40, The Valley of the Lost. This episode is pretty much a better version of Huntara. Not a giant improvement given where it is on the list, but it's kind of fun. Perfume and Huntara's interactions are really funny, plus it's cool to expand on the location of the Crimson Waste. The episode immediately moved up 5 spots when it introduced Double Trouble, who is the best. Number 39, Flutterina. This is a moderately fun episode, but my problem with it is that it just feels kind of out of place. It's definitely a simpler episode, and it's mostly enjoyable aside from the boring action. It's just that it feels like a leftover from season 2 with how not tied to the story it is, and how Ketcha actually interacts with Adora, which, might I add, is the only time this happens in the entire season. Not all of that is necessarily the episode's fault though, it's fine enough. Number 38, Whiteout. Since it is December, I am going to count this as a Christmas episode. It's a pretty decent Christmas episode. I like Drunk Adora, who doesn't? Plus the episode itself is full of energy and is pretty funny overall. However, Seahawk feels a little unnecessary in this episode, and once again, the action is boring. Number 37, The Beacon. I enjoyed this episode, but it's a huge step down from the two that preceded it. Noticeably less happens in it, but the character interactions are enough to keep it from becoming boring. I love the emotional dinner scene with Glimmer and Angela, as well as Scorpia trying to put the bricks back in the wall. Plus, this episode is set for promise, so I can't hate it. Number 36, Fractures. In my first She-Ra video, I think I was way too critical of Glimmer in Season 4. The moments relating to her mother are actually really well done, but one problem I still have is that she wants to go ahead and use this thing that can blow up a planet, I think. This is just where her character becomes a bit hard to follow, and this plot point is kinda too silly. It makes sense in the context of wanting to defeat the Horde, but blowing up a planet just doesn't really work. But I still adore the argument scene between Adora and Glimmer. That was amazing and really compelling. Also, Scorpiuma. Number 35, Boys Night Out. This one is definitely silly as well, but I can mostly get behind it. The character stuff is great, but what really saves this episode are the songs. This is probably like the last episode I would expect to have songs, but they are amazing. This cast is genuinely amazing at singing. It makes me wish there were more musical numbers in the series. I also think the development for Bo is great, as we see how he feels about the two people he cares about the most fighting against each other. Number 34, The Seagate. Ah yes, the episode that introduces Scorpia, Mermista, and Seahawk. Kinda surprised with that character selection, it's still low on the list. But yeah, the episode is definitely good. The second half of it is definitely too slow, and the Ketcha and Adora part is pretty underwhelming. It's still funny though, and once again, great songs. Number 33, Shot in the Dark. Out of all the season 5 episodes, this is definitely the one I enjoyed the least, but it's still solid. Elo and Ketcha are really cute together, and it's a very pretty looking episode. I like Von Hordak's Existential Crisis. However, it definitely drags a bit, and the stuff on Etheria is not that great either. Number 32, Light Hope. Pretty good episode. It's one of the first ones that accurately portrays Adora's conflict of being She-Ra. The ending of the episode is especially wholesome. Everything else in the episode is still decent, if a bit forgettable. Number 31, An Ill Wind. I could picture this episode being an amazing one if it weren't really action heavy. I didn't really care for the fight scenes, which take up a fourth of the episode. But Netossa and Spinnerella have fantastic interactions in this one. I also love Durong Hordak here. Number 30, Destiny Part 1. You know, I would have preferred if they just combined Beast Island and this episode into one. Given how tedious that one was, I think it would have worked a lot better. Beast Island Part 1 has some really powerful scenes like Hordak and Double Trouble, and especially the She-Ra doesn't get to choose thing. I also really like the Entrapta stuff. It's really well done and has a better use of the whole signal thing than in Beast Island. The Glimmer and Scorpia stuff is a bit slow and what holds this one back for me a bit. Number 29, Launch. I don't really like the stuff with Entrapta and the other princesses. That was definitely done way better in Destiny Part 1. However, the Adora and Horde Prime stuff is incredible. It does such a spectacular job of setting up Horde Prime's ship as a taunting location, if the first episode of the season didn't already do that, and it's really powerful to see Adora face She-Ra and find out what her destiny is. Or rather, find out that she doesn't have a destiny. And that cliffhanger, damn. Number 28, Return to the Fright Zone. I wonder where the characters might go in this episode. I love the stuff with Natasa and Spinnerella here, even more than I did in An Ill Wind. It's amazing and sweet and everything I could ever want. The fight scenes in this episode are also decent. Not great, but definitely better than most of the episodes on here. It's cool to see Bo's dads again as well, and I like this line.
We don't throw tanks at our friends!
Number 27, The Battle of Bright Moon. Another one where the fighting is a step up from the usual standard. Some stuff in this season finale does feel a bit rushed, like Glimmer getting her powers back and the princess is coming to fight, but it works well enough as a satisfying send-off to the season, and I adore that fight and banter between Catcher and Adora. Number 26, Stranded. Glimmer and Bo are definitely my second favorite She-Ra couple, and this episode is a big example of why. It's really sweet to see them reconcile with each other at the end of the episode, and the best part is it doesn't stop here. They slowly grow closer together throughout the rest of the season, and it becomes really emotional. The Star siblings are great fun additions as well, plus I like Swiftwind's impressions of everyone.
Oh, not this again!
Number 25, The Sword Part 1. A really good introduction to the series. It sets up Adora, Ketra, Glimmer, and Bo's characters excellently, which is something I definitely appreciate more and more on repeat viewings. This one is a bit slow at times, but it's still a great opener to the series, and I'm glad it turned out this good. While there definitely are better episodes that will get you more attached to these characters and this show, this one's a classic, and I really like it. Number 24, The Price of Power. Okay, first of all, I love how this sell button thing is shaped like an exclamation point. That's the funniest joke in this episode. The Catcher stuff in this is absolutely brilliant. Heartbreaking, but at the same time, a little bit hopeful. The stuff with Adora and Shadow Weaver is a bit tedious to get through up until the very end, which is so incredible that it brought up this episode like 10 spots. You know, if the exclamation point button didn't already do that. Number 23, System Failure. I love Entrapta, and this is undoubtedly my favorite of the 3 princess recruitment episodes. Not only does it do the best job of establishing the newcomer's character, but it's also just really fun and funny. It has the same charm that Entrapta herself has. Sure, the plot isn't amazing or anything, but the characters and their energy make it a blast to sit through. Glimmer is especially great here. Number 22, Ties That Bind. This might be the most unpopular opinion I give in this entire video, but I like Swiftwind. He's not the best or anything, but I think he's pretty cool and charming, except in the coronation. It's fun to see Adora and Swiftwind just hang out, and those parts are really fun. Oh, but that's just a side plot. The main plot in this one is really funny. Even if not too much happens in it, it's not tedious to get through at all because the interactions are golden.
On your feet, Horde scum. Whoops.
Number 21, Protocol. The Horde trio have always been fun side characters, so it's neat to see them be the focus of an episode for once. Definitely a nice little cooldown in the middle of season 4. The ending is genuinely really nice, and the bot shield laser joke is funny. The parts with Adora and Lightheart are pretty good as well, with the message from Mara being especially great. Number 20, Reunion. This episode is just so cute and wholesome and lovely and sweet, and I just adore it. Although not the most subtle, it's a wonderful allegory for coming out, even if Bo's dads are queer themselves. It's just so touching to see that they still love their son. George and Lance themselves are really charming characters, and this episode is just a fun time. While the Catcher stuff is still good, it is a bit of a tone breaker, and that's probably the only reason why it's not higher. Number 19, Taking Control. I talked about this one semi-extensively in my first year video, but to sum up my thoughts, I think it's great, and the series wouldn't be the same without it. The character interactions just feel so natural, and I love how the show understands its characters this well. In the dinner scene, come on, the dinner scene! Oh right, the Frosted stuff is still pretty bad, but it's nice to see Natasa and Spinnerella. Number 18, Remember. A really interesting episode, sorta in a mysterious way. Seeing the show play with the concepts of space and time is not only fun, but it ties in really well with Adora's character arc. It's nice to see her and Catcher be happy at the beginning of the episode, only for it to later be heartbreaking when they realize things can't stay this way. It's also a pretty funny episode as we see the amazing, but sadly pretty underused, chemistry between Adora and Scorpia. Number 17, Destiny Part 2. A really great season finale, and much better than the aforementioned Destiny Part 1. The first half is a bit slow, but the second half and especially the final 5 minutes are excellent. The fight between Catcher and Hordak is cool, I love Double Trouble obviously, and this episode does a great job of setting up the character development that would later be continued in Season 5. Number 16, Princess Scorpia. I could definitely see this episode being a top 10 contender if it weren't for the stuff with the Best Friend Squad. Those scenes are fine, but they just feel out of place, and I would have preferred it if they just made a full-on character study episode for Scorpia. But when it is that, it's great. It's sad to see Scorpia leave Ketra, but at the same time, you know it's both for their own good. It feels earned and satisfying and profound. An amazing culmination for Scorpia's character after what we've seen for the past season. Number 15, Moment of Truth. Although it feels like we jump from Crimson Waste Adventure to Fright Zone Escape a little too quickly, this episode is still amazing. This show is great at creating complexes for all of its characters, and this episode is emblematic of that, especially with Glimmer. The emotional moments are really strong, and the score is especially great here. Number 14, Failsafe. Hey look, it's the Poopy Trope episode, yay! In all seriousness, that scene is the best in the episode, and I can't praise it enough. But that's not to say the first 20 minutes of the episode aren't amazing. It shows the bond Ketcher and Adora have grown, yet all the things trying to break that bond, some of those things just a pure obligation. It's sad and beautiful, complete with, once again, an amazing score. Number 13, Hero. This episode can be a bit hard to get into at first, but once it gets going, wow. This one is almost on the same level as Promise in terms of its emotions. It can change from sweet to heartbreaking in the course of seconds, yet it always stays investing, beautiful, and not only leaves the characters in the show thinking, but the audience thinking as well. Number 12, The Portal. I'm actually very surprised this one is somehow not in the top 10. It's phenomenal though, if a bit slow and confusing towards the middle, but the episode makes up for that with the two best scenes in the entire season. Like Taking Control, this is another episode where Ketcher's character arc wouldn't feel complete without it. And do I even need to talk about the Angela scene? Just, what an episode. Number 11, Horde Prime. Hello you fine people, welcome to AMA, aka Alien Meal Analysis. Today we'll be looking at the cuisine of Squidward's husband and Galaxar's father, Horde Prime. Alright, starting off here we have blue jello, not sure how you get that in space. The host himself appears to be eating purple crab, then here at the table we have ham, I think.
It's ham! Careful, Dot!
Sounds delicious. Yeah, great episode. Number 10, Princess Prom. Who doesn't love this one? It's a bit of a filler episode, sure, but it's really charming and super cool to see the gang just hang out. I don't even mind the typical prom cliches we would see in other shows because they actually tie into the characters and add to them. Also, isn't it ironic that the episode that introduces Frosta, my least favorite character, is higher than episodes that introduce characters I love like Mermista or Entrapta? Number 9, Mer Mysteries. This is the funniest episode of the entire series. Every second of it has a great amount of energy, which is especially refreshing considering that's what the first half of season 4 was kinda lacking. You can tell the voice cast had an absolute ball recording their lines for this Wait, I should have said that during the Princess Prom segment. Ugh. It's a really clever mystery story that stays interesting, which is impressive when we already know who the spy is. Number 8, Perils of Peekaboo. First of all, Lauren Ash can sing, wow!
Yes, I'm a spy in disguise, hiding before your very eyes.
Again, I don't think a couple more musical numbers would hurt the series at all. Anyways, like Mer Mysteries, this one is just really funny and fun. I love the underwater party setting, Scorpion and Perfuma are just so wholesome together. I like the joke about Seahawk having a dozen exes, that was funny. This episode is just really fun and doesn't feel like it's slowing down the rest of the season at all, despite not having the whole space plot line. Number 7, Roll With It. If Mer Mysteries is the funniest episode of the whole series, Roll With It is the second funniest. It serves little purpose to the overall plot, and it's just characters goofing around coming up with a battle plan, but that's why I love it. It's a tremendous amount of fun, and each character gets their moments to shine, villains included. We also get new Ketcher designs and animation styles, with the Glimmer one being the funniest. Number 6, No Princess Left Behind. This is the one. This is the episode where the pieces the first couple of episodes laid out finally came together. It's funny, it's emotional, it's well written, even the action is creative and fun. The interactions between every character are energetic, yet also natural, and it's a blast to see them go on a rescue mission, as simple as that plot might be. This is definitely where the show really started to get into the groove of things, and while it's not doing that much compared to the 5 episodes above it, it's really entertaining, and I always love rewatching it. Number 5, Once Upon a Time in the Waste. A close to flawless dissection of Ketcher's character, but at the same time, like the couple of episodes I just talked about, it's really fun. Probably the best in the entire series when it comes to balancing comedy with powerful emotions. Ketcher taking over the Crimson Waste and then becoming a leader of a giant army is a silly concept, but it fits in well with her character arc of accepting happiness and love. Same for Adora, the message from Mara is really heartbreaking. Oh, and speaking of heartbreaking, number 4, Promise. I do not think this one even requires any explanation. Like, what am I supposed to say? It's brilliant, it's charming, it's crushing, it's profound, it's everything this show is. It conveys Ketcher and Adora's entire arcs in the span of 22 minutes, and this is only the 11th episode. I can just go on and on and on and on about how brilliant this episode is, but if you've seen it, you likely know its level of brilliance already. Number 3, Corridors. Just like the previous two, heartbreaking is the perfect word to describe this episode. Even from the second it begins, with the intro cutting to a sad flashback, cutting to Catcher looking out at the stars, which turn out to be explosions. Every conversation is brilliant, every story beat is earned. I am stunned at how amazing this one is. Not even the comedic stuff with Adora, Bone, and Trapped on the ship takes away from this episode's quality or emotional weight. I seriously cannot praise it enough. Number 2. Save the Cat. I'm speechless. Everything about this episode is masterful, like literally everything. I am shocked they managed to make something this good. I've watched this one numerous times and I'm still on the edge of my seat during the fight between Adora and Chip Kettra, only to be exhilarated a minute later. The emotions in this episode are some of the strongest in any show or movie or piece of fiction I've ever watched, period. It's all expertly done with not one bit out of place or awkward. It's not quite my favorite episode of the series, but it's one of the first ones that comes to mind when I think of why I adore this show. And finally, my number 1 favorite episode of She-Ra. I've noticed that when it comes to rankings, I don't always have the most popular number 1 choice, but even with all the amazing, funny, heartbreaking episodes I just discussed, I had to give number 1 to Heart. I'm really sorry to be cliche, but honestly, these episodes deserve every bit of praise they get. They wrap up everything in this very complex series near flawlessly. Every character gets their own conclusion that feels logical and satisfying. The only one who still perplexes me a bit is Shadow Weaver sacrificing herself, but even then, I still think it's a good idea that fits in well. This finale says so much about every single character: Bow, Glimmer, Scorpia, Entrapta, Hordak, and especially Ketcher and Adora. It's all extremely satisfying, it's all done excellently. All the wrap-ups of all the relationships are incredible. Just like Save the Cat, every emotion is just as strong here as it was on my first viewing. In fact, after thinking about and analyzing the show a lot, they might be even stronger now. I'm sorry to end this video off with a cliche, but at the same time, this episode deserves it. It's one of the best series finales in history. There are multiple reasons why my love for this show has persisted for this long, and the biggest reason of them all is Heart.